All right, thank you for staying with us. It's time for us to take a look at the dailies on Daybreak right here on Trust Television. And we'll begin with the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Quite a number of interesting stories, I must say. The lead story here talks about racketeering at depots worsens petrol scarcity. It has the riders that says marketers blame low supply, depot owners deny hoarding, stations sell for 300 naira in Kaduna, Kano and Lagos. You also have above the lead story, beware of thieves. FG cautions Nigerians traveling to UK and the US. Adeleke dethrones 3 monarchs, suspends Osaic chair and members. I won't stop telling truth to power, says Sultan of Sokoto, and that's on page 5. You also have Nigerians have enough food to eat, says Minister. You'll find that on page 5. FG begins 14-day paternity leave for workers on page 8. Attacks on facilities won't affect elections, according to INEC. And then at the footnote, Nigeria in perilous times, says the CJN on page 4 of Daily Trust newspaper.
All right, now let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. It has a lead story that says, APC Assembly tackle Adeleke. Governor sacks 12,000 workers. We have a first rider that says, APC fumes, says governor courting endless litigation, agitations, distractions. State of Osun backed by law. Governor's action illegal, says Assembly. Sacked local government chairman head to court. PDP backs Adeleke's action. Hits APC. Just beneath that, 10,000 resident doctors remaining in Nigeria. This is coming from the National Association of Resident Doctors. Then we also have contractors suspend Lagos-Ibadan road construction, resumes January. Kano APC chair caught with 367 PVCs jailed. And just by the masthead, we have ASU warns of new crisis, seeks intervention. And above the masthead, foreign NGOs, fintech firms linked to terrorism financing. No candidate for national award, nominees fail exam. And we also have 50% materials deployed. Burnt offices threaten polls. This is coming from INEC. These are the major stories on the Punch newspaper.
All right. Now let's take a look at the Nation newspaper this morning. The lead story there talks about Adeleke hits Osun State with gale of sack reversals. You would also find the riders that says workers, 3 monarchs, a psych chair, others fired. You also have 30 permanent secretaries demoted. Lawmakers draw battle line with governor over state name, anthem, logo, and others. Now, you would also find at the very top, above the masthead, Supreme Court overwhelmed by 6,884 cases. CJ and Ariwola laments. Beware of money passport theft in US-UK government warns Nigerians. Ghana, Morocco likely to carry Africa's flag to round 16. Lagos selects 3 bidders for $2.5 billion fourth mainland bridge. You also would find the nation wins 15 honors to remain best at 30th NMMA. So these are the stories on the front page of the Nation newspaper.
Over now to the Guardian newspaper, which has a lead story that says, cyber crimes raise concerns for 30.2 trillion monthly e-payments. And then we have a first rider that says, Nigerians count losses as fraudsters get sophisticated, empty bank accounts. Dearth of IT staff worsens recovery time in banks. NCC issues over 9 security alerts since beginning of 2022. Experts seek review of Cybercrime Act 2015. Kick against plea begin. And just above that, we have Senate President Lawan loses at appeal court. Attacks on facilities troubling won't deter us from conducting credible polls. INEC vows. And beneath the main story, we have appeal court reinstates Adebutu others in Ogun State. Beware of politicians' cravings for power. CJN wants judicial officers. We also have Adeleke suspend OSEC chairman. 6 others dethrones 3 monarchs. We have enough food for Nigerians, Agric Minister boasts. These are the major stories on The Guardian for today.
All right. So let's take a look at the Leadership newspaper. The lead story there talks about last-minute appointments, how governors set booby traps for successors. You also have the writers that says it's wasteful heights of political rascality, say stakeholders, CSOs. Appointment in order, government a continuum, governors insist. You would also have 2023 polls will hold despite attacks on our offices, according to INEC. There are other stories there. Abuja, Kaduna rail well secured, minister assures passengers. Beware of thieves, FG warns Nigerians traveling to the US and Europe. Qatar 2022, Ghana beat South Korea 3-2, Cameroon draw 3-3 with Serbia. So these are the stories on the front page of the Leadership.
Now let's take a look at the Blueprint newspaper. It has the lead story that says, 24 hours after inauguration as Osun governor, Adeleke dethrones 2 first-class monarchs, sacks 12,000 workers. The first rider suspends OSEC chair members, says pre-July 17 appointment nullity. Named the sacked civil servants, Oyetola's aides challenges governor. Assembly kicks against governor's rejection of Osun as state of the virtues. Then we have Dangote promises 300,000 jobs in sugar subsector. U.S. scholar attributes Europe's prosperity to Africa. Attack on Atiku, despicable. This is coming from Zulum. We also have APC Yobe North, Machina floors Lawan at appeal court. Then we have in Edo State, mob beats man to death over alleged motorcycle theft. Be security conscious, FG tells Nigerians traveling to UK, US, and Europe. Then we have Kaduna, troops rescued 9 victims, recover 90 cows. And just beneath the masthead, we have half salary, payouts or risks mother of all crises, as warns federal government. The first rider vows to protect public varsities from collapse. Naseni boss advocates decentralized salary for lecturers. Says some of our colleagues don't deserve to be lecturers. These are the major stories on the Blueprint for today.
All right, so let's get perspectives on these issues. This morning, we have joining us virtually the chairperson, editorial board of the Blueprint newspaper, Zainab Okinu, who joins us to give perspectives on some of these stories. Thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak this morning.
My pleasure. Good morning, Ayuba. Good morning, Stella.
All right. Well, let's start with the legal week. The CJN, Chief Justice of Nigeria, is raising some concerns when they mark the legal week, where over 60 senior advocates, were conferred with that, and he is talking about Nigeria being in perilous times. That's one of the stories on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper. He talks about these perilous times, really, and how there are now overwhelming number of cases in the judiciary. Do you see this new senior advocates now, the over 64, how will they help with this overwhelming number of cases at the courts?
Okay, good morning again. I think it's a genuine complaint from the CJN to have thousands of cases awaiting it for a body that is, I think currently there are about 12 plus the CJN himself, as against the 21 or so that they should have. To have such a large number of cases awaiting just a few people to decide on, to deliberate on, is really overwhelming without having to repeat what he said. But I know part of the problem is, I know there are there must have been more political cases than some other criminal cases, other civil cases involved. And that's because our politicians have refused to learn their lessons. Ordinarily, issues that they can settle among themselves as a body, as a political party, everybody wants to try his luck at the Supreme Court or move from the lower court up to the Supreme Court, uh, such as some of the cases we have seen in recent time. So, yes, we need to look at how we can decongest the work of the Supreme Court justices. I know part of there's this case about having a court that will try election cases, which has not come to fruition. So if only we can decongest by having other various courts that will be empowered by the National Assembly to look at cases that not necessarily that should go to the Supreme Court, such as some of those election or political cases, that will reduce their burden because, I mean, these are not young men and women. So having to look at so many cases, where do they start from? So this has its implication on our legal system. Cases get so delayed, and when cases get delayed, justice can be denied in the process. I don't think it augurs well for our judicial system that will have to have justice.
Okay, Hajia, while the CJN was talking, he talked about the fact that there's an increase. He talked about the fact that there's an increase in crime
Even
all
if
over across the country. But then he was specific. He warned them against being in bed with politicians, especially as we approach the general elections. What do you say to that? Because, some experts have said in the past that it is because politicians feel that because of their relationships with some judges that they can get some things turned around in the courts, that we actually see some of this impunity during the primaries and all of that.
Yes, so there are many questionable cases or judgments that we have seen in this country. I mean, some people became governors by Supreme Court pronouncements. I think that's what he's indirectly warning against, because justices of the Supreme Court should not, or of any court for that matter, should not be aligning with any political party. Unfortunately for the CJN, he just did that last week when he was invited to Port Harcourt to be celebrated. Fine, there's no problem about that. But the statement he made about the five renegade governors of the PDP, that showed that he was somehow in support of their action. So, and since that time, the people have been questioning even his own integrity and his own political leaning. So he should set a good example by not kowtowing to what politicians want him to say or want him to do. And he should also be straightforward, because even when he was called up by a lot of people who complained about his statement, he said he didn't say so. Yet we saw all this. I mean, it was there. YouTube is there. So we saw the statement he made. The best he could have done is to apologize that, well, I didn't mean it that way. I was joking because my governor's wife is from Rivers State. So that the way we joke over issues of my wife, this and that in Nigeria. So he could have used that as an alibi instead of denying it. deny what we all had. So the point is he should set a good example in what, not just what he says, by his own action.
All right, so I want us to take a look at another story on page 4 of the Daily Trust that talks about Adeleke dethroning 3 monarchs. That's the story that's on virtually all the papers. And this is kind of, I would say, signaling some sort of crisis between the current governor and his predecessor, talking about last-minute appointments and the executive orders that the current governor issued, even on the day of his inauguration, suspending the account of the state, changing the name of the state from State of Osun to Osun State as recognized by the Constitution, the issue of the logo and the anthem of the state, you know, and several other things that, you know, he made declarations about. The assembly, the state assembly now, seem to be drawing a battle line with the governor and all of that. This is just less than a week after his inauguration. So what's your take on this?
Well, this might just be the beginning of a long drawn battle because Adeleke has just been sworn in and he has already swung into action. Good for him. He has hit the ground running as we expect our elected governors to do. That's also fine. But you see, to some extent, you cannot blame him. For the governor, I mean, the governorship election of Osun State held in July, if I'm not wrong. It held in July, and and then the governor, the incumbent then lost the election. So for him to come from behind, between that time and now, to have done this appointment, even if it is in good faith, it calls to question some of these issues that the issues we are going to see in the next few months. So,
in fact, we understand that one of the monarchs is.
I think the governor.
Former APC chair.
Yes, in fact, we
Pardon?
understand that one of the monarchs is a former chairman of the APC. So perhaps there's a political undertone to this.
Exactly. Exactly. We shouldn't.
All right. It appears that we have lost. Zainab. Yeah. Well, we hope that we get her back as soon as possible. But I mean, the fact is that how did we even get here? Politicizing traditional institutions. You know, that's one thing that, you know, till date seemed to have watered down the impact or the influence
of the traditional
institutions in our country.
You know, only areas where it's clearly defined, where they say when a man dies, the son takes over. Those are the particular places, but that still have this respect, and where you know that the way the next monarch will come in is clearly defined. But in areas where they'll say there are 3 ruling houses, you submit 3 names to the governor, and then the governor selects one. In that process, politics comes in, you know, and whoever now is selected, I mean, sometimes his allegiance is, you know, to the government of the day.
And in the process, we lose certain traditional values or rights, you know, in the process of all of this. And I don't think that that's something that we want to do as a country, as a society, because the traditional institutions are still very important to us, and we should preserve them.
If you notice, there are some states where the monarch or the traditional ruler can't really speak to certain situations when they occur because he's scared of being dethroned by the governor, which that shouldn't be the case, because he's supposed to be, you know, a traditional institution is supposed to protect it and then be like the voice of the people, not the other way around.
Not the other way around.
You know, in the issue of this Osun State, I saw a lot of comments yesterday about the governor's actions. But then some people ask certain questions. How do you appoint 30 permanent secretaries just barely 2 weeks before you leave office. That's an issue that...
Almost looking like a setup. One of the papers puts it, it says, a booby trap. It says that it's more like the predecessor setting a booby trap for the incoming.
Exactly. At the time where people are thinking of cutting costs, that, and then you appoint 30.
Well, it speaks to a lot. It shows that there's a lot that meets the eye from what it looks like, because one would expect that if you're making appointments, it should be either from the beginning, of your administration, or maybe midway, or just somewhere, but not at the tail end where you're already counting days.
Yes. Or if you're making an appointment, you're the one that is going to take responsibility for the appointees. So,
all right. So we understand that Hajia Zainab Okino is back with us, joining us there. So let's get back to her. Hello, Hajia.
Yes, please.
Yes.
I'm sorry about what happened.
It's fine. I mean, the technicalities. These are the things that they usually happen. So you may proceed, or I would say continue with your thought on this issue of the Osun State.
But, I was trying to explain it is with the traditional institution, which represent our culture. If office will look like an amiable person, I was wondering why he allowed politics to take control of him to the extent that he will, between July and when he handed over 2 days ago. So,
all right. So
it's almost normal. You expect the because of doing their politics. I think the Oshu people should not be drawn into their politics, because polarize the people themselves. What we want for the people is development and dividends of democracy, as we say it here, not personality war.
All right. There's this story still on the Daily Trust newspaper. Nigerians have enough food to eat, Minister. This was the Minister of Agriculture speaking yesterday, and he actually went further to say that we are #1 producer of cassava, yam, as well as #2 producer of sorghum after America, and #3 producer of millet. So all of these look very good on paper, but is that what it is in real time? Are Nigerians feeling all of this?
Well, statistics can deceive sometimes, but the reality is different from what statistics says, because you and I know the situation that even at our small level, we are struggling. So imagine those millions of people out there who do not have food to eat. Grains, he talked about grains that we now attribute this scarcity or the fact that it's expensive to the war in Ukraine. If we have enough, if we can produce enough, if we are that buoyant as far as having all these that he mentioned are concerned, we will not be talking about the war in Ukraine. Would have been self-sufficient to the extent that we do not have to wait for any foreign country, whether there's war or not, before we can feed ourselves. It may not be that it is not available. We are only but the main thing is the cost. Some of these things, the grains may be available. Some of the sorghum or all those may be available. But it's not enough to the extent that there is so much money chasing what is available in the market. So I think they should just leave us alone, because we've had enough of these statistics that do not correlate with reality. All the people, most of our people in rural areas, even those of us in the so-called cities in Nigeria, are struggling to feed. I don't know about you, Stella. We are all struggling to eat. So for him to give all these statistics is like adding salt to injury. So they should just leave us alone to cope with whatever they have to give us until they leave office, and then hopefully there will be improvement in our lives. So I wish, how can he even tell us this when there's so much insecurity and we know that our people are not going to the farm as they should? I think he should check his
The,
statistics.
the minister also seemed to have so much confidence in the dry season farming as one of the things that they are planning to maximize this time around, to make sure that farmers farm during the dry season and all that, such that they have even invested in a way by providing certain implements for the farmers. So that should suffice, don't you think?
It should. It should, but I hope so. I hope it does suffice because, yeah, there has always been investment in fadama farming, dry season farming, which in the north is very is people do it and we gain a lot from it. Consumers gain a lot from it. But the problem is not that our people are not ready to continue to farm. The problem is the overwhelming insecurity that we have in the country. Many people have abandoned their farms, not because they do not want to go to the farm or they do not want to produce, but because of insecurity. Because at least I know a few people from my own axis of the country where people who used to own big farms had to abandon it because of insecurity. If only we can solve our insecurity problem, half of our problem would have been solved. If it is production, if it is going to the farm, our people are ready to go to the farm. Our people have the capacity and they have the willingness and they are ready to work. Everybody wants to feed his family and possibly make money out of farming because in actual fact, if there's encouragement from government, farming is not a bad idea. So that we have not been seeing that because of the level of insecurity in the country. So let them fix this security challenge we have, and other things will follow, including dry season farming.
All right. Well, I cannot imagine that we'll move away from the Daily Trust newspaper without talking about one of the stories that talks about FG beginning 14-day paternity leave for workers. I mean, the men need the break from work as well, isn't it? What's your take? I would like to get your take on this, really.
I'll love it. You know, raising children should not be the responsibility of a woman alone. There are two people that come together to have a child. So I would love it. But the question is whether our men are ready to work even if they are given 3 months. I hope they will not still say that, well, this is the job of raising children is for women alone and not for men. But I hope when the paternity leave is given, it will be utilized properly and not jettisoned or still turned against the women because they always think that we are traditional, we are Africans, and
I mean, even if the men don't do anything, the moral support or the mere fact that they are there for the women during this period is something to really look forward to, isn't it? And don't you think we need more than 2 weeks?
Yeah, in actual fact, we need more than 2 weeks. If we really want to do this thing, we should give them at least a month. That first month of the birth of a child is very important.
Because
it involves a
men
lot of
go
work.
through a lot of
As
sleepless
women,
nights. I said, because I know a lot of men go through a lot of sleepless nights once a child comes in, you know. For the first 3 months, it's almost as if you cannot find yourself, you know. So I think that...
Haja, I saw some people advocating for at least 1 month. Do you think that is good enough?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Okay.
Yeah, but I just spoke about sleepless nights. Okay. Sleepless nights, but you are not breastfeeding. Just to support, to moral support is your problem. So you want to sleep while the woman is struggling and breastfeeding, and the woman has sleepless nights too. So, but at least you can, but you are not, the men are not breastfeeding. It is the women that are breastfeeding. But the least you can do is to give moral support. Wake up too, along with your wife.
Okay. All right. Let's take a look at the Blueprint newspaper. There's this story there. Half salary, pay us or risk mother of all crisis, ASU wants federal government. It looks like the problem with the ASU is still here with us.
Oh, well, I hope we do not go back to the to the ugly days of this strike again. The government has to do something. Honestly, I feel it for us. They've been reduced to nothing. They've been reduced. I mean, why won't they be paid? Why won't they be paid? Even those that are collecting salaries are finding it difficult to make both ends meet. So if we do not pay us, what do you expect? I want us to rethink this, our policies in Nigeria. We cannot be throwing money to politics
well, Hajia, the
when
government
there's no
says
money
that they
for.
cannot pay for work not done. That's the argument of the government.
I know. But even when they work, the work they did, they were paid half. Was it half last month? I feel it for them. I just wish we could do something about this incessant ASU strike. We do not value education anymore, and that's why we're having all these issues about our children going out of the country, where people are valued, where people's capacities are valued and appreciated. We need to do something. ASU people, ASU members are human beings. They have their own problems too. They need to eat. They also need to send their children to school. Can't some policies be reversed? It's a big issue.
So,
we need to solve this ASU problem once and for all.
So the argument that the
But we are
government is
not yet
making,
there.
the argument that the government is making is that, if they do this, if they pay ASU regardless of the months of strike, what precedent will it be setting for other sectors of the country or the sectors of the economy? It's more like saying, well, we do not want to reward you for, allowing students to be at home for, for months. So that's the argument that the government is putting forward.
Industrial action is part of trade unionism. So I'm saying that we can find a way to solve this problem if we have the political will. If the government has the political will to solve this problem, it can be done. You cannot leave people without without salaries for eight months. What will happen to their morale? It will naturally go down. Do you think our children can get the best out of these lecturers again? It's not possible. They are human. But we can solve the problem if we have the political will. We can avoid it. We have heard of industrial actions in other places. It is hardly more than a week before the problem is nipped in the bud.
So are you calling for a return to the negotiating table? Because at this point, it doesn't even look like that's where the problem lies.
Well, of course, dialogue will still be the solution. I mean, there's no way we'll have ASU pulling their own strings and the federal government doing their own. We still have to go to the negotiating table. But all the parties should be willing to do things in the interest of Nigeria. Let's put national interest first. Let's put our children's interest first. Let's put our future, because the children are the future. The students will have our future. Let's put it first. If we put all this in perspective, solving the problem or getting solutions would not be an issue.
All right. So quickly, I would like to get your thoughts on this. A story on the Punch newspaper that says 10,000 resident doctors remaining in Nigeria. That's according to the Association of Resident Doctors. That's on page 28 of the Punch newspaper. Is there a correlation between this and the issue of the strikes and the issue of welfare of professionals in Nigeria? What's your take?
Well, I didn't hear the last part. It was dragging technology.
I'm saying that
it was a hitch.
The welfare of professionals is probably part of the reasons why we are seeing this. What will be the impact on our healthcare system?
You can only imagine it. it will get worse than it is. It is bad enough as it is. It can only get worse. If you have 10,000 doctors to 260 million people, yeah, you are calling for disasters and tragedies, unfortunately.
And
These are
now
the
we are
things we are
not
going to
even
do.
graduating
The
more
other day, we were
medical
already
doctors.
talking about the best of us, of our medical team moving abroad. Everybody is seeking for greener pastures in the name of a brain drain, which has always been there, but it's now worse than it was. So having this number to 260 million people is sad. It's sad, really.
And you know,
We need to open up.
just as a by the way, I'm saying that with this brain drain that we are experiencing, we are not graduating more medical doctors since ASU, you know, is battling with the issue, with its own issue.
Exactly. I was actually going there before you interjected that we're not graduating enough medical doctors. We are not opening up more medical schools because you know every year you have thousands of young people wanting to study medicine, but the opportunities, the current capacities of some of the universities that are offering medicine, it's always limiting these students,
And it
these
appears,
candidates.
and
So
it appears
while
not,
we admit a fewer number of people, we graduate even fewer
and it
or
appears
less
not a
number
lot
of
is being done to keep
students.
these people within the country anyway.
Pardon?
It appears not a lot is being done to keep them in the country.
Not much. Not much. You know, you and I know that what these people receive when they go abroad, plus the fact that they will be working in an environment where there is professional ethics, they have enough equipment to work efficiently. What they get is in millions by the time you convert it to our declining naira. So, you know, at the end of the day, you want to consider yourself, you want to be able to earn a living, you want to be able to pay your bills before you think of the country.
All
No
right.
matter how you love this country, there are so many patriotic Nigerians who ordinarily will not want to go out of this country.
All right.
They love this country, we love our country, but does the country love us or does the country care for us? So it boils down to the bottom line is your own survival.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak and sharing your insight with us on the stories making stories on the front pages of our newspapers. Thank you. We appreciate that.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.